Welcome back, Casual Cooks. Today, we're going to get ready for the big game. But remember, our whole thing here is about turning up the flavor and not the stress. These are two really easy recipes that you can use to make your party go off this year. And there's something for everybody, whether you're a Seahawks or a Patriots fan. Today, we're making Seahawk Blue Green Nachos, and we're making Patriot Red, White, and Blue Sliders. So come along and join us while we make these two great mains, regardless of which team you support. First thing we have to do to make nachos is get the oven going. I'm going to set it for 400 degrees. So I will simply get my oven going, and now we'll give it a few minutes to heat up. So simple and so easy. If you blink, you might miss this first recipe. So blue and green nachos. The blue that we're getting is from the blue corn tortilla chips. Most of the stuff I got today, I got at Trader Joe's. So we're going to put down a thin base of blue corn tortilla chips. On any sheet pan, I've put some tin foil down on mine. Next thing we're using is some cheddar cheese, and we're just going to sprinkle that over the top. I got white cheddar because I really wanted to keep the color going with the theme of blue and green and white. It'll look a little weird if you had some cheddar on there as far as some orange in there, but just get whatever floats your boat. All of what I'm doing is really just a method for any type of nachos, but this gives me some good things to play around with the colors. I will put some recipes underneath in the description, but really all of this is to taste. You can add as little or as much cheese as you want and as little or as much other things as you want. So I like it nice and gooey, so I'm going to go ahead and use the entire bag. Next, we're going to add chicken. If you had any other type of meat you wanted, you could. I went ahead and shredded this chicken. If you haven't seen how to shred chicken, I bought a rotisserie chicken at the store. Really easy. I just put it on one of those shredders and shredded it up. I have a video that shows you how to do that. If you look back in the library in some of the old videos. Again, put as little or as much meat as you want. And if it's not chicken, you could easily use pork for this. You could use ground beef as well. And next, we're going to throw this in the oven for about 7 to 10 minutes. It won't be finished. We have other things that we're doing, but just enough time to really heat everything up. So here we go. Open that up. Slide it in. And we'll be back in the next 7 to 10 minutes when that chicken is heated up and that cheese is nice and melty. And I've gone the full 10 minutes, so let's take it out of the oven and see how this looks. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at how nice that meat has kind of gotten some color to it. That cheese is nice and melty and gooey. So we've got the blue part down. Now all we need is a little bit of the green. You can put whatever green you want on here. I'm going to put on some green salsa verde. I just used the Hatch Valley from Trader Joe's. I'm going to put on some sweet and hot jalapeños. Love these things. I'm a big fan of cilantro, so I'm going to sprinkle some cilantro. And you could homemade guacamole, or you could just use store-bought. So let's make this green and get these nachos done. All right, first thing I'm going to do is put some guacamole in there. Again, this is store-bought. That's just a shortcut. But you could easily put some of your own on there. Homemade. Next, I'm going to put some of this green salsa over the top and just drizzle that down. I'm going to sprinkle some of that cilantro over the top. If you're not a fan of cilantro, you could also use green onions. That would be excellent for this. And lastly, I like some of those hot and sweet pickled jalapeños. Oh gosh, yes. Talk about Seattle's 12th man. We're going to need 12 men to be able to come in and eat this. This is a ton of food. Takes maximum 20 minutes to prep this thing besides going to the store. That is absolutely gorgeous. So for the first choice of the Seahawk green and blue nachos, we're already done. And let's stop stalling and give this thing a bite. Get something that's got everything on it. Oh yeah, this is the bite. Look at this. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Look at this. You've got the blue corn chips. You've got the rotisserie chicken. Easy purchase. Just shred it up. You've got the cheese. I did a shredded cheddar cheese. I've got some guacamole, some cilantro, and some pickled jalapeños. Let's go for the bite. A little messy, but that's the way I like it. The flavor on this is great for something that's just so quick, so easy. But this is only one of the meals we're making. What if you're a Patriot fan? I got something in store for you too. Get ready for some Patriot red, white, and blue sliders coming up next. Patriot fans, fear not, I have something for you too. The Patriot red, white, and blue sliders. Here's the ingredients you're going to need. Some ground beef, some pickled red onions, some blue cheese, that's where the blue comes from, and some Hawaiian slider buns. Let's get started. The next thing we need to do is get some ground beef going and getting it brown. I got 2 pounds. You only need about 1.5 pounds, so there's probably more here than I'm going to need. So I'm going to get this ground beef going right onto the stove. While that's cooking and browning up the meat on the stove, I'm going to do a couple things. We're going to need to put these sliders into the oven, so I'm going to get the oven going on 350. That's starting, and it doesn't have much to go because I just did the nachos. Second thing I'm going to do is I need to cut these Hawaiian rolls in half. So any box of brioche or Hawaiian rolls, typically this is the size that you want to use, and you want to bring it all out as one thing. Once you have it, I'm just going to use a bread knife. Sometimes they come pre-slit or pre-cut. I just want to cut down the middle of all of them. So I'm just going to rotate this while I cut it, so I know I'm getting about the same place throughout the entire thing. Otherwise, you end up cutting on an angle. Try to keep them together. If some of them start pulling apart, don't worry about it. Very casual. So let's see if we can split these things open. Perfect. That's exactly the way it should be. Got the bottoms, got the tops. And then you can put on whatever you want for some type of sauce. Now, there's going to be a lot of flavors inside these burgers, so I wouldn't overpower it with a whole bunch of sauces, things that would complement the ingredients that you see. My recommendations would be a mayonnaise or a garlic mayonnaise, or what I like to use is some of this burger sauce from Kinder's. It's not a Thousand Island. It's not as sweet as Thousand Island. It doesn't have a lot of the sweet pickle or the sweet taste, so it's just kind of enhancing the flavors that are there, not stealing from them. So I'm going to add a little bit of that. On the bottom of the bun, I'm going to go ahead and just get this going. This is also going to create a layer that stops the cheese and the grease from going through that could get the buns all soggy. And I'm just going to grab one of these and kind of flatten it out so it covers the entire bottom of the buns. All right, that should be enough sauce. You can always add more sauce as a dipping sauce when you get done with these. I'm going to check the ground beef and see that it's brown, give it a drain, and bring it over and start preparing these. And here is my ground beef that I've browned up. I already drained it off. I put mine on a plate with paper towels to kind of soak up some of that extra grease. And then while I was cooking up the meat, I added a couple bit of seasonings. Remember, we're all about adding extra flavor, but not extra stress. So I added some Kinder's, the blend, salt, pepper, garlic, and then I also added a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I like these when I make burgers and sliders, and this is basically the burger we're building. It's just going to be ground meat instead of a patty. The oven is up to 350 degrees. We have our ground meat ready to go. We've got our Hawaiian rolls cut in half. We've slathered the bottom with your sauce of choice. I put some Kinder's burger sauce on there, but you could do mayonnaise or some type of garlic mayonnaise would go really well. Something that's not going to steal from the flavor of the burger because there's going to be a lot of flavors going on. I have a disposable pan and I would want to get a little grease in there, something that will stop it from sticking. So I'm just going to use some cooking spray. You can use avocado oil. I'm just going to lightly spray the bottom so it doesn't stick, and maybe the sides, and get that done. And then we're going to move the bottom, if I can do this without it falling. Let's see if I can do this on the camera. And let's actually see if I can use a spatula to keep this all flat. So we're going to take these entire things and move them right into this disposable pan. Worked perfectly. We're now going to add some of this ground meat, and we're just going to spread it on there. And in fact, actually, I'm doing this, I'm just going to use my hands. Now, it is hot. This did just come out of the pot that I did, so this is still really, really hot. But we're going to be throwing it into a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes. Remember, we made 2 pounds of this ground beef. This is 80-20 ground beef, so it's got a little fat in there for us. I like the fat. Fat adds flavor, and I'm not looking to save any calories on game day, if you know what I'm saying. I'm here to watch a good football game and enjoy the food and the friends and the fun. I'm going to kind of pack it down a little bit. I definitely have some leftover ground beef. That'll be great. I will use that in something else. And the next step is we're going to put some light cheddar cheese. Basically, you want white cheddar cheese. These are the red, white, and blue Patriot burgers. Again, we have the red, which we haven't used yet. That's going to come on at the end with the red pickled onions. We have the white. That's the cheese. So we're just going to place the cheese right over the top. Then it's going to melt all on top of that ground beef. And we could overlap them, but I'm not looking to overlap. Let's see if I have enough to cover. All right, this is perfect. We're going to put the lid on. So I'm going to put these on the top and these on the top. And that looks perfect. The only thing we need to do is add a little bit of melted butter onto the top, and then we're going to actually cover this with tin foil and put it in for 15 minutes. We're going to take off that tin foil and let that butter brown up, and it's going to be perfect. And then we're going to put on our last 2 color ingredients. We have just taken a little bit of butter, put it in the microwave for a few moments to soften it up. And I am just going to put some of that right over the top. It's going to add a nice little bit of color, but it's also going to add a little bit of flavor. But we don't want it to burn, so we're going to actually cover this to put it in the oven for 15 minutes at 350, and then we're going to take off that aluminum foil to let it get a little bit of color right at the end. So here it is. I'm just going to loosely cover it. There's lots of room for air to escape, and I'm just going to slide that in the oven, close it up, and set a timer for 15 minutes. So I am going to take that aluminum foil off the top. We just need it to basically brown the top of the buns and melt some of that cheese. Close that up and let it sit for 5 more minutes, and then we'll take it out and see where we're at. It's been 5 more minutes, so let's take these sliders out, see how they look, and add our final 2 ingredients, aka colors. So let's see what we got. Oh yeah. The buns are perfectly, if you can hear this. Oh, nice and crispy. You should see the cheese. The cheese is melted right between. I'm gonna hold that up so that you guys can see that. Oh, this is beautiful. But we still have 2 more things that we need to get on there, and that is the red and the blue. For the red, we're using pickled red onions. Now, if you are not a pickled onion person, pickled just normally means it's put into some type of marinade with water and sugar and vinegar and a little bit of salt, and it really adds a lot of extra flavor. But you could grill red onions, or you could put red onions on here plain and raw, and it would still work. Something to just hit that red. We got the white from the cheese, and that's where we got the white cheddar cheese. And then the blue, it's not the color blue, but we are using blue cheese crumbles. So that's going to be the blue. You would think, wait, doesn't it already have cheese on it? But trust me, it will work. So the hardest part is we have to take some of these buns off to be able to get these other parts on there. So I'm not sure if I can get them out without them coming all apart, and I don't want them to come apart. All right, here we go. Perfect. I got them out and onto the cutting board, I think. Okay. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to be able to get some of this stuff on here. So we're going to have to take off some of these buns. Ideally, you should be able to move all of them all at once, but it's fine if the cheese gets a little gooey. Oh, look at that cheese pull. Beautiful. And even if it took off some of that stuff, that's okay. You don't need a lot of blue cheese on here. You just need a little bit. The cheddar cheese is what's really covering most of it. So I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of the blue cheese because it's going to melt once you put that lid right back on it. So I'm going to put some of that down there. I'm a big blue cheese fan. If you don't like blue cheese, honestly, you don't have to include it. I'm just doing it for the blue. And then I am going to add some of these pickled red onions. I don't want it to get too soggy, so I'm just going to kind of drain them by pulling them out with a fork. Now, I bought these pickled onions at the store. You can get them at most grocery stores or Amazon. They already come done. So it really, this whole recipe, the longest part was basically browning the ground beef, which probably took about 7 minutes, and waiting for the oven to heat up. And then you had another 15 minutes cooking it, in 5 minutes without the aluminum foil on top. So you really are talking maybe 20 to 30 minutes for this whole recipe to come together. Now, while it's open, if you wanted to put more of the burger sauce on here, you could, and I do. I'm going to put a little bit more. That's the way I roll. When it's yours, you do it the way you want. So I'm going to put a little more of that sauce over on the top part. And we're just going to close up that little book right here by covering them all back up. And then you're just going to cut it individually. So these were already separated by themselves. But let's see how they look. We're going to cut these. Again, this makes 12 rolls, but probably if you're eating with a couple guys, maybe you're going to have 2 each or more. But let's take a look at one of them. So you can see it in there. It's got the ground beef, it's got the white cheddar, it's got some of the blue cheese, and it's got those red pickled onions. Look at the cheese, it's just hanging there. And let me get a bite in on this. That works. Everything in here fits a purpose. The cheese is extremely melty and creamy. Since I added with the ground beef, I added Worcestershire and some salt, pepper, garlic. It also gives it a lot of kind of flavor, but also a little bit of spice, depending on how you're looking at that. Not spice like hot, but seasoning. You've got the pickled red onion, which is a little sweet, but not anywhere overpowering. And then you got the blue cheese, which really adds this kind of nice sour finish, but in a good type of way. If you don't like that blue cheese type of sour I'm talking about, then don't add it. But this is great, and it just makes like a slider without having the actual burger patty. So whichever team you're going for this year, whether it's the Seahawks or the Patriots, I hope you give these recipes a try. They're really quick, really easy, also very inexpensive, and feed a lot of people. If you found this content good, please give me a like, please give a comment, add a subscription, and get your future videos so you have those notifications on. I hope you have a great Sunday and enjoy the game with your friends and family and some good food. And remember, until I see you next time, keep it casual. I need a napkin. I might eat all this myself. Good Lord. And a fly literally came in the middle and bye-bye. Couldn't have planned that any worse. Luckily, this isn't for the actual big game day. This is just for me to show you how, and then I'll be making another one on this Sunday.